Hi, welcome. Welcome to the last video of Meanwhile at the Castle's Learn to Knit Socks live video series. I am really excited for this. We have made it all the way through up to our last steps in finishing our first pair of socks. We've got a couple of people joining us, so it'll be fun to see who joins us today. Today it's all about the finishing. Today we are going to start off by learning how to close up the toe in our sock, do the Kitchener stitch. We'll also be learning about weaving in ends and have a little bit of a discussion about blocking versus non-blocking. So I want to show you the part of the sock that we are working on. We are going to be closing up the toe of our sock today. I've got the sock that we were working on last time where we did the toe decreases, and I still have 12 stitches on my front and 12 stitches on my back needle ready to close. So it's still open right here. But let's see what it looks like when it's finished. Let me get it up close. All right, so along the top here is where we've seamed it closed, and doing a Kitchener stitch makes it so that you don't really have any bulky seam and you really don't notice where you joined it together. It just kind of continues the pattern along that you have been knitting, and it joins those together. So a lot of people are really nervous about doing Kitchener stitch, but it is not scary. It doesn't need to be scary. I have two socks that I will be showing you today. I'm going to show you both socks with just slightly different steps to show you, to compare and contrast. So let's start with what the Kitchener stitch looks like, what the steps are. On our website, on meanwhileatthecastle.com, on our Learn to Knit Socks blog post, we have a chart that I have uploaded today that has these steps, this little chart here. You can print that out, or you can just go look at it. It's available online at many places, but I've got this that I've created for you that you can print out. Okay, so the first step, the first part of the Kitchener stitch typically has two setup stitches. And I'm going to show you on this sock what it looks like to do this section here. And then after you do this section, you begin repeating this section. This looks confusing. I'll help break it down for you so it's not scary. And then on this sock, I'm going to show you what it looks like if you leave off this top part, if you only do this section here. I will do that on this sock so we can compare and see what you think you like the look of best. Okay, so there's a couple of things to note about the Kitchener stitch. When you are seaming things, typically doing like a mattress stitch to close up seams in your knitting, you will do quite a few different stitches. You'll seam up quite a few stitches, and then you will pull the yarn and tighten all of those up, and it kind of zips it up like a zipper. With the Kitchener stitch, you need to get the tension how you want it with each stitch. It doesn't really work to go back and tighten it up unless you go through with your needle and kind of tighten each stitch along, starting from back here and working your way over. It's not really simple to do that. So it's just important to watch your tension as you go. So I'm going to thread my needle. First, I have cut about 12 inches of yarn. I've cut about 12 inches, and I'm going to thread my tapestry needle. And we are going to start with our setup. Okay. On the setup here, it says front and back. We're talking about the front needle and the back needle. We work really close to the tips of our needles here. I'm trying to find the best place to keep this so that you can see it while I'm doing this. Let's see if that will work. Okay, so for the setup, on our front needle, we are going to purl and leave it on. So we're going to go through the front needle, this first stitch, as if we were going to purl, which means we're going from back to front. We're going to just tug on that slightly and leave it on. It says on. The second setup stitch, we are going into our back needle. We are going to go in as if to knit and on. So the back needle, we're going in as if we are going to knit. So that means from the front of the stitch to the back, and it stays on. Okay, that's not really hard. That's pretty simple. So we've done our setup. Now it's time to go into our 4-step repeat. This is the one that really confuses people. So I want to show you, we're talking about our front needle and our back needle. We do 2 steps on our front needle, 2 steps on our back needle. And you know which way you're going to start because when you look from the front at this needle, we are looking at the knit side. And if we look at this, the front needle, we're going to begin by knitting. We're looking at our knit side, we begin by knitting. If we kind of open this up and we look and face this back needle, we're looking at the purl side. We're going to look at these stitches. So for the second half, we're going to, on the back, we begin with purling. So that's one way to help you remember. We do 2 stitches on the front, beginning with knit because we're looking at the knit side. 2 stitches on our back needle, beginning with purl because we're looking at the purl side. So hopefully that will make sense to you. I'm going to show you how this pattern works, and then we will go through and compare with the 2 different socks. So first stitch, we go in the front as if to knit, and we slide it off. Okay, front knit, off. Second front purl, leave it on. So the first stitch always comes off on both needles. Now we're going to go in as if to purl and leave it on. Now we go to the back needle. Now this is the fiddly part. I always have to work close to the tips so that we can pull this off, so I'm always readjusting. Okay, back, we begin with purl, take the first stitch off, then knit, leave that stitch on. Purl, first stitch off, make sure it doesn't get caught on any of these needles, and then go in as if to knit and leave it on. Okay, I pulled that tight, but not so tight that it's just really killing it. I mean, I can loosen that up right there, but we don't want to strangle the Kitchener stitch. Okay, we're gonna just come back around to the front. We don't bring this around this way, don't bring our yarn around that way or through here, just leave it hanging down to the side. We're gonna go back. We start on our front needle and we see the knit, so we know we're going to knit, and the first stitch always comes off. So knit, off, purl, on. Now the back needle, purl off, knit on, purl off, knit on. Okay, let's do that again. Bring it back around to the front, knit off. Remember the first stitch we always take off on each needle. Okay, knit off. We can pull this through and then purl on, and the back needle, purl off, knit on, purl off, knit on. Okay, I've got a little bit of fuzz there. Let's have a look here. our stitches. Here's one column of stitches and another column, if we can see that right there. When we're doing this, we can slide this stitch off, pull the yarn through, go back in as if to purl, leave it on, and then I can go to the back, pull that stitch off, pull it through, go in as if to knit. But I like to do it kind of in a little bit more of a fluid motion. I like to get it really close and I like to slide it off, rotate it around, and come back to purl, all in kind of one motion before I pull. And that makes it a little bit easier for me to remember and know I've finished both of those steps. Okay, so I'm going to go in as if to purl, slide it, and right off. Back to the front. I give that a little bit of a tug, not too tight. Remember, you can't really adjust your tension after you've gone along several stitches. You really need to get your tension right as you go. Okay, knit, off, purl, on. Purl, off, knit, on. Let's do it again. Knit, off, purl, on. Purl, off, knit, on. So we just do whichever one is the opposite. We start with our knit, we're facing the knit side, and the next one we know is going to be the opposite, which will be purl. Okay. Judy says, hello again from Montreal. Hello. Okay, and purl off, knit on. Knit off, purl on. Purl off, knit on. I hope I'm saying this right. I'm just doing it. Hopefully I'm saying it right there. Let's look. Ooh, that's looking nice and tidy. Knit off, purl on, purl off, knit on. I'm going to tell you, sometimes if I haven't been saying this as I go, I don't do both of those steps. I only do like one of the steps sometimes, and I will end up with an uneven number of stitches. Like I'll have 3 on my front needle and 2 on my back. But if you repeat this as you go and say it to yourself, then you'll know you've done both stitches and you'll end up with the same number of stitches. Say you have to put this down and you can't remember where you were when you go to pick it up again. Well, let's look at where the yarn is coming from. The yarn is coming from the back needle, so I know that I have finished my back needle and I need to start on the front needle. So I will just look at what the front says and go from there. Front off, or front knit off, purl on. Gotta readjust. And back needle, purl off, knit on. When you have just 2 stitches left, it gets slippery. Okay, and then we do half of the last of these. We do knit off and purl off. Okay. Before I weave in any ends, we're going to look at this toe and what it looks like following this setup. When you do this setup rows, you often end up with little, what people will call rabbit ears right here. This side actually looks pretty good. This side has a little bit right here, but not really bad. I actually had my tension really well, so we don't really have too much of an issue with that. Okay, I hope you're following that. Are you feeling comfortable, confident? Are you confused with anything that I've showed you there? Going to move on to the second sock, where I'm going to show you the Kitchener stitch without doing these 2 setup rows. Going to thread my needle. I've got about 12 inches or so. I always like to have plenty. I don't like to work with it being so short. I like to give myself, plenty of yarn to work with. Okay, we're going to just jump right into this 4-step repeat that we've just done on our previous sock. So I'm going to slide my needles, my stitches close to the tips, and we're just going to start. Front, knit off, purl on. Knit off, purl on. Back needle, purl off, knit on. Ooh, Judy said, I'm answering your questions before you even ask. Wow, that's fantastic. I'm a magician. Okay, knit off, purl on. Purl off, knit on. Let's keep going. Knit off, purl on. Purl off, knit on. Let's see, do we have the same number of stitches as I go? 1, 2, 3. Oh, gotta do it this way. 10, 11, okay. I think I actually did 14 stitches on this toe. I can't remember. 14 stitches on each needle. I can't remember what I did. Okay, knit off, purl on, purl off, knit on. Gotta constantly readjust so I don't lose the stitches on the needle I just worked, because I get it so close to the edge that I'm always readjusting. Luna City 273, love this. You are amazing. Oh, thank you. You're very kind. I appreciate it. Okay, back to the front needle. Knit off, purl on, purl off, knit on. After doing this on a pair of socks, you'll find that it's just not scary. And I don't know why it would be scary, because if it doesn't work, it might look messed up, but you can still wear it. It's okay. It's not a big deal. Just practice, get it down. Knit off, purl on, purl off, knit on. I have messed up before where I had the wrong number of stitches towards the end, and one time I unpicked it and picked up the stitches and did it again. That was very frustrating. Another time, actually I think I've done it a couple of times until I really got this down where I don't even have to think about it anymore. I ended up just going through 2 stitches at once. So instead of going through 1 stitch and doing, knit off, purl on, I would have like purled on 2 stitches, purled together 2 stitches and treated it like 1 just to make it work. It's just your personal preference. If you want to go through and make sure it's perfect. When it socks for me, going on my feet, in my shoes, I figure it's all right. I wanted to get the job done, but I also want to understand it, know how to do it, know how to correct it. So it's good to do the steps thoroughly and to pay close attention. Okay, we're almost to the end. Purl off. Oh, did I not? I dropped that one. I dropped several. Ah! Everybody gets to watch this live. This is gonna be fun. There's 1 and 2. Whew, saved it. Okay. I did split this stitch though, a little bit. Let's fix that. Okay, let's try it again. Okay, I was on the front needle. I still split that. Oh, thanks. Great recovery, you said. Davette. I hope I'm saying your names right. Okay, I've got it. I'm on the front stitch, on the front needle, so I know I need to go to the back needle now. And I was telling you that it's hard when you get to the end. They get slippery, so just beware of that. Purl off, knit on, knit off, purl on, purl off, knit on. Okay, this says low battery. I just charged my phone, so give me just a sec. We're gonna go get a battery or a charger here. Where did I put it? Oh, of course it's inside. Okay, everybody that's going to be watching this in the future is going to love that I'm going to have you hold for just 1 second. Okay, got the battery, or the charger. Let's plug it in and continue on. Oh, we got it. Okay, never fear. Okay, so we are at the end. Last time with this sock, we finished by knitting off on this front needle and purling off on this needle, okay? With this one, without skipping the setup or this end, we're actually going to just slide our needles right out because we've already done these stitches. Give it a little tug. Okay, I'm out of breath. And now we're going to look. We've got a little loop here, but that will be perfectly fine when I go to weave in the ends, because when I weave in the ends, it's going to be where I go down in my sock from right here. You won't even see that. So let's compare. Let's look at how these look with the setup. With this sock, we did the setup rows, and with this sock, we only did the 4-step repeat. We skipped the setup rows. So let's get close. So right here, it's slightly more rounded than it is on this side. This side, when we go to weave in the ends, those will both just disappear. So honestly, do you see much of a difference? I learned to do socks this January, and I have done 9 pairs, but now I understand the knitting better with these videos. That was from Judy Carlson. Thank you so much. I'm glad it's been helpful. All right, I don't really see enough of a difference. Let's look at the top of our socks. Do they look really different to you in the patterning? So my personal feeling on this is that these 2 setup rows, don't even bother with them. That's my personal feeling on it. I only do this. And then that's one less thing to have to remember. So this is pretty easy for me to remember, and I just have it in my head. I don't even have to refer to this one anymore after doing it a few times. So that's my thought on it. Now you do it at how you choose, however you see fit. Okay, Sharon Mika, yes, I so appreciate all your work with these videos. Thank you, Sharon. Thank you. Okay, I'm going to weave in the tail, weave in the end here. We've got our little loop here, and to get rid of that, I'm going to kind of pull this up, and I'm going to go down down right through here, and that is going to pull that tail end in. And when I weave in my ends, I kind of, let's see if we can see it. I kind of weave. I like my ends woven in. I got to pay attention to that. I like my ends woven in on the top of the foot rather than the bottom, so I don't have a line that's thicker on my toes, so when I'm walking I don't feel an extra thickness. So that's going to make a difference in where I put my needle, where I land with my needle at the end. Okay, so I have my needle in. I'm going to weave. Let's get to the right spot. I'm going to weave up and down through these decrease stitches right here until I get down a little ways, and then I'm going to end on the inside. I'm going to hold on to that needle. I'm going to pull this inside out and pull that through. So this is the bottom. I want to weave in on this side. Okay, so to weave in, I like to put my hand in the sock. And then I like to follow the pattern of my thread. So I kind of follow a row of stitching, and I will follow where that stitching takes me. Sounds like my husband's home. Okay, so I'm going to start. Let's see if we can get it close enough where you can see. I'm just gonna do my best to show you where I am. Okay, I'm going to follow this thread right here. I'm going to go through here. Judy says, I did it on the bottom. Good thing these socks are for other people. I have several on the bottom also, but that's when I learned that I prefer it on the top. The world doesn't end if you weave in on the bottom though. That's the good thing. Now, doing it this way takes a little bit more time. I really like doing this. I kind of feel like it's kind of my zen moment after finishing a sock. And everybody has their own preference of how far they feel like they need to knit or to weave in the end. I'm excessive, I would say, because number one, I enjoy doing it. I don't want to weave in a million ends, honestly, but weaving in a few ends at the end of a sock, at the end of a project, is kind of satisfying to me. And I also like, if I start on one spot, I like on a toe to go all the way across, because then it's even, because I told you I'm a bit excessive and obsessive. But there's no need. As far as I have gone, that should be enough. That should be enough on here. I'm going to show you another way you can weave in your ends. Rather than doing, this is kind of duplicate stitch. This is just following one yarn and just weaving it in through where that yarn goes. But you can do it on the diagonal. So if you do it on the diagonal, you're going to just catch those bumps diagonally. Let's see if I can get it here. Let's see if we can see that. Let's get a few more here. Okay, we've caught some stitches diagonally, and pull that through. And then you want to go back through the opposite direction. And that's one of the tricks to weaving in ends, is going the opposite direction. Sorry, I'm kind of at a weird angle to hold this myself. Let's see if I can do it this direction. I usually do this towards me. But then I've got some more stitches diagonally going the other direction. And I would go down probably about this far and back about that far, and that should be good. You could do it, down and back, or you could do it, 3 times. But that is plenty to weave in your ends. Now, I usually leave a little bit of a tail until I'm finished and I wash it and it's blocked, because when you do that, the stitches are going to stretch and tug and pull, and this end could end up flipping through to the other side. So it's good to leave a little bit extra. Okay, let's look at our other tail that we have on our cuff. On our first video, I told you that when I start my cuff and I join in the round, I don't do anything fancy to join in the round. I just start knitting. And I'm going to turn this the other direction so we can see it a little bit better. Let's see if I can get to that. Did I already start weaving this in? Oh, I think I did. Which one? And I wove this one in. This actually was like this. There we go. It has a little bit of a divot right here. So to get rid of that, let's use the correct end of the needle. Let's thread that through. I just pull through, let's see. I want to get through the top, the next stitch over, tighten that up, go back down where I came through, and it closes that up so it doesn't even disrupt the pattern. It looks just the same now. And then weave in the ends on the back. Now on the cuff, you could do it several ways. You could do duplicate stitch through here, you could do it diagonally, but you've got kind of ribbing, it kind of gets messed up. The easiest way is simply just to go down the column of stitches this way. To go down and back, because remember, when you have it go in two different directions, it will be more secure. So I could go down, and because I'm obsessive, I would go all the way down. I just keep on going because I enjoy doing it. Okay, and then we would go back up the other column. And that is a very simple way to weave in your ends on the cuff. And when you get almost to the top, but not quite because you don't want to see a little end, trim the end. I better trim that a little bit closer because that will show on the top. And we have our finished sock. Okay. Ta-da! I hope everybody ends up with a beautiful finished sock. I've seen some on Instagram. It's been fun to watch, and on Ravelry. Okay, let's talk a little bit about blocking. So I have sock blockers, and if you watch any podcasts, then you will usually see people showing their socks on sock blockers, and everybody probably wonders, why in the world do I really need sock blockers, or do I need them? I've never used them. Well, it's really personal preference. It's much easier to show a sock on a sock blocker like this than it is to show a sock and trying to lay it out and hold it and show the different details with it like this. Much easier on a sock blocker. So if you see podcasters doing it, often it's because it's easier to show that way. But I do like to block my socks, but specifically if there's any type of patterning on it. So for instance, this sock here, this sock is a vanilla sock. That's what we've been knitting, a vanilla sock, which is all plain stockinette for the main body of the sock. For those, I just really don't typically block those. I just wear them, no big deal. But if there's patterning, like this one has some patterning on the cuff and the back has some cabling, I like to block it because it helps smooth it out, open up those stitches, and help the pattern to lay nice and smooth. And especially if you have lace in your socks. So if you have any lace patterning, this is the No Purl Monkey socks that my sister knit for me for Christmas, and it's kind of dark. I'm wondering if you can see it very well. But without blocking these, you don't see the pattern show up quite as well when you have lace. And so that's when, especially if you're going to be giving it as a gift, when you're doing that, I would definitely block. How to block. How to block socks. So what you want is you want some wool wash. Here are a few different examples of wool wash. There's lots and lots and lots of wool wash available. I've tried several. I honestly don't have a really great preference. These are the two I use the most, probably because I have the most of these two and I like how they smell. But I want to show you with this one something that I really like. This one is a bar, and I usually use an old vegetable peeler to peel off a shaving that I stick in the water and get nice and soapy. And then I have a kind of fancy vegetable cutter, you know, that I slice, you can slice cucumbers with. I see some plastic or wood blockers. Which do you prefer? Okay, we'll talk about that in a minute. So I will cut the edge of this, and I will use this edge to clean the bottoms of my socks when I'm washing them, sometimes on the heels and the toes when they get really dirty, because it gives you a little bit of friction without it being too much to felt. But I'll add a little bit of wool wash to some just slightly warm water. One thing that's important to note is that your socks can felt. Wool felts with a combination of two things, with moisture and something else, moisture and friction, or moisture and extreme changes in temperature to hot or to cold. And so I usually use just slightly warm water. Add this, let the socks soak for about 20 minutes, take it out, squeeze the water out, don't wring, just squeeze. And then I have an old salad spinner that I spin mine with to get the moisture out, but you can roll it up in a towel and, you know, press down on it or step on it to get extra out. And then you can put them on sock blockers, or you can get blocking mats, or you can just lay out a towel and flatten everything till it's nice and smooth how you like it. You can pin it or not pin it, depending on what it is. If there's any patterning I want to open up, sometimes I might pin it open a little bit. But I really only block my socks the first time I wear them. After that, I don't. It is really noisy right by my house today. This sock has been worn and washed multiple times, and it's only been blocked once, and it is still nice and open and smooth. And so I really only do it one time. Okay, we have a question about sock blockers, about metal, wood, or plastic. I have two kinds. I have metal and I have plastic. These are acrylic. And most of the plastic ones I see are solid, ones that people have made from plastic placemats. And then wood ones. I have not used wood sock blockers. My sister uses them. I like both of these because they have a lot of airflow. This is completely open. And so, and it's nice and smooth. Nothing gets snagged on it. Nothing catches. It's just a wire. It's really smooth. It doesn't rust. I can't remember where I bought these from. I just looked up wire sock blockers. I think that's what I did when I looked for these. This one is also really open. It has a lot of open work. These are actually ones that my husband cut for me. Every once in a while I have them listed in my shop. I like that they have hooks on the ends so I can hang them up in my laundry room to dry. Wood ones are heavier. They don't typically have as much open space, and so they'll take a little bit longer to dry. But I know a lot of people use them and love them. The ones that are plastic, that are made from placemats, they are completely solid. They are kind of thin and a little bit sharp along the edges because they're thin. I would not say that's my favorite. I would say for just home use, you can get sock blockers, or you can just lay them flat on a towel or blocking mat. Not a really big deal. So that's my opinion on sock blockers, that I really like the metal and the acrylic or plastic ones that I have here, but I cannot give you an opinion on the wood ones. So that is the end. I'd like to give you a little bit of time for just a minute to ask any questions that you may have. A tip that I have is, as soon as you finish one sock, you can weave in the ends, or even before that, cast on your second sock. You don't want second sock syndrome. when you have it cast on, and at least join it in the round and knit one row. It is so much easier to just pick up and start knitting because I don't have to think about this now. I can just start knitting and it's ready to go. But if I put it away in my project bag, I'm like, I finished that one sock, I'll cast the other sock on later. Chances are it's going to take me a lot longer to get around to it and I will lose interest in that. So that's what I say. Don't finish your sock unless you know you have a little bit of extra time to cast on the second sock, because that's, to me, that's really important to do. So I've got my second sock cast on. That was the second sock to this one that we've been showing as an example. And as soon as I finished this one, I cast this one on. But I haven't been knitting on this one because it's much smaller needles and I wanted to get the other ones done quickly. Luna City or Lunacity, I'm not sure. She was saying second sock syndrome, perfect naming. Thank you. I didn't come up with that, but I do think it's clever. Okay, if you have joined us for this sock knit along, I would love for you to show your progress. Put them on your feet, take some pictures. Let's see how it's going. Using the hashtag #MyFirstSocksCal. You can tag myself. I am Indigo Chicken Dolls on Instagram, or you could tag my sister Emily, who has been doing the DPN series, and she is Salt City Knits on Instagram. You can go into the Ravelry group, which is Meanwhile at the Castle under the groups tab, and share your progress. And we will be having continuing this knit along for finished pairs of socks, where you can enter your finished projects in the Ravelry group. I will have a separate thread for that. You can enter that to win a prize. I'm not sure how long we'll keep that open. We want to make sure people have plenty of time to finish a second sock, so it'll probably be open for another month, I'm guessing, which will give you plenty of time. So probably sometime in April we'll be closing that. But I am so glad that we've had some participation here, and hopefully this has helped you overcome your fear of knitting socks and has given you some tools you need in order to be successful in your sock knitting. And most likely you will become addicted and start hoarding sock yarn just like I do. All right, well, that's the end. Thank you so much, and we will chat again in Ravelry and on Instagram. Bye.